Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joel Ambafoje, a student from the University of Education, Miniba, and I am offering history. So from the history department, and I am doing gender and culture development in Africa as my thematic area for the semester. So today we will be looking at patriarchy in African society, the historical roots and contemporary manifestation. So patriarchy, someone might ask, what is patriarchy? So patriarchy is a social system in which men hold primary power and authority. It has been the pathetic future of Africa. That is, patriarchy has dominated the African society at the expense of the matriarchal system, where the woman holds primary power in the social aspect of life, or lineage is passed through the woman's line. From the pre-colonial era to the present day patriarchal structure, there have been some influence on the social, economic and political relationship in African societies, and it is often to the detriment of women's rights and empowerment. It is not only in Africa. We can talk about the Greek society, whereby women were marginalized and were not seen in the public space. Talk about the Greek society, where women were seen as inferior to men and were excluded from the public life, and they were expected to, their main role was to just manage the household life and take care of their children and stuff. Even at some extent, some wealthy women who were in the Greek society, some wealthy women who were in the Greek society, sometimes they had limited education and stuff. Not only talking about the Greek society, we can talk about the ancient Athens, and they were citizens, but women had limited rights. Even women were not allowed to vote or cast their vote when it comes to the political space. The voting aspect was only given to guys. That is, men. Aspect of the Greek society was given to only, the Athens society was given to only the men. We can talk about the ancient Egypt, and it was from all those times, we can say that it was only the Egyptian culture that had respect for women, a lot of respect for women, and they allowed women to engage in properties, and they engage in businesses, and sometimes participate in retro activities and stuff. By the way, about the various Asianic societies and stuff, let us link it to the African roots. And from historical record, it has indicated that the pre-colonial African society were not inherently patriarchal. In fact, many of those societies, like the Ashanti of the Ghana and the Igbo of the Nigeria, they were matrilineal system with property and social status. They were passed on through the maternal line. Yes, even presently, in some churches, some women are not allowed to lead in some churches. They are all these things are things that talk about the fact that Africans, or maybe Ghanaians and Africans as a whole, have really given help to patriarchal system that was brought by the colonial masters. So basically, the aim of whatever I'm saying now on my presentation is to look at patriarchy in Africa, its historical roots and contemporary manifestation. So we look at the contemporary manifestation of patriarchy in African society, and we can see that patriarchy has really continued to manifest in various ways and in contemporary African society. And one of the most significant manifestations is the unequal access to education and economic opportunity. We can talk about women and girls, that they continue to face a significant barrier in education, including poverty, the early marriages and pregnancy, and it has led to a gap in educational attainment between women and men. So with this unequal access to education and economic opportunity, we can link it as far back to the Greek society. In the Greek society, we could see that women were not allowed to go to school, unlike men. Men were given access to education. They were given that backing. They laid the foundation for them to have that educational access and stuff. At the expense of women, women were only asked to stay in the house, taking care of the husband, the households, and the kids and stuff. But unlike men, men were actually they are given access to go to school, and in that extent you can see that there will be a vast difference between men and women in the aspect of education. Another manifestation that we can talk about is patriarchy has actually limited the representation of women in politics. Why do I say there is a limitation of women in politics and decision making? We can give a critical example in the just ended election 2024 of Ghana. You can see that when the presidential candidate for the New Patriotic Party, the NDC, who is now the president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, was during his campaign, he actually talked about nominating about 30% of women in the cabinet that he will set when he is given the opportunity to serve the country as the president. But I think yesterday also, the list that came out, you will see that it was only, if we are ranking it in percentage form, the number of women that were actually included in the cabinet that the president set was about 10.3% of women, and it is less than even the percentage that he promised us. So in this case, women has actually been limited. They have not been given that freedom to serve in the political space of the country. This is actually what I am talking about. I am talking against that patriarchy is really dominating, and women are not given that opportunity to express themselves in the political space of Africa, and specifically maybe Ghana. So finally, we can talk about patriarchy actually manifesting in the culture and social norms that perpetuate women's subordination and stuff. So for example, the practice of bride price, where the man is supposed to pay the woman's family in hand for her marriage, it actually perpetuates the notion that women are commodities that can actually be bought and sold, which is a very bad thing to do. So this afternoon, I will actually conclude by saying that patriarchy is actually a recessive feature of African society, with its historical roots in the pre-colonial era and contemporary manifestation in unequal access to education and economic opportunity. It has actually limited representation in politics and decision making, and there is a high rate of gender-based violence and cultural and social norms that actually perpetuate women's subordination. However, there are many examples of resistance and challenges to patriarchal structures